The sky hung heavy over the broken highway, bruised with clouds and streaks of fading gold. A young man named Jamal Carter, barely 19, walked alone along the edge of that road. His shoes were torn, his backpack nearly empty, and the world felt colder than it should have in early autumn. Jamal had only $15 left, the last of what he earned cleaning cars at a dusty station outside of town. Each coin felt like hope made small, fading with every step he took. He didn't know where he was going, not really. The bus to Atlanta had left 2 days earlier, and his cousin never called back like he promised. Jamal told himself he'd find another way. Maybe a job fixing tires, maybe a place that would give him a chance. But for now, there was only the road, the sound of his own footsteps, and the whisper of wind moving through tall grass. That morning, he had woken behind an old diner where the cook had given him coffee and a biscuit. "Keep your head high, son," the man had said. "Good hearts always find their path." Those words stayed with him. Jamal wanted to believe them. He passed a faded sign that read, Route 17 South. Ahead, the road curved through pine trees and disappeared into the distance. The sun dipped low, and the air filled with the scent of rain and gasoline. Somewhere beyond those woods, an engine roared, loud, rough, like thunder. Jamal turned. A motorcycle came speeding down the road, chrome flashing, pipes growling. Then another, and another. Within seconds, a dozen bikers thundered past him, leather jackets marked with flames and wings. The roar shook the air, echoing against the trees. Jamal stepped back, heart pounding. The last biker in the line, a tall man with silver hair and a beard, suddenly swerved, fighting for control. His bike slid sideways on the wet asphalt, tires screeching. The machine tipped, crashed, and rolled into the ditch. Jamal froze. For a moment, everything was silent except for the ticking of the cooling engine and the soft hiss of rain beginning to fall. The other riders were already gone, unaware. Jamal ran. The man lay still beside the motorcycle, breathing hard, clutching his side. His jacket was torn, mud streaked across his face. Jamal dropped to his knees beside him. "Sir, can you hear me?" The biker groaned, eyes fluttering open. "Yeah, kid, I hear you." His voice was rough but calm. "Just need a minute." Jamal glanced around. No traffic, no help, just endless trees and the smell of rain. "You might be hurt bad," he said. "Let me get you out of this ditch." With a strength born of pure instinct, Jamal hooked his arms under the man's shoulders and pulled him up the slope. The man winced but didn't protest. They reached the roadside as thunder rolled across the sky. Jamal looked down the highway. No cars. He checked his phone. No signal. The biker was shivering now, his lips pale. Jamal took off his own worn jacket and placed it over him. "Why'd you do that?" the man muttered, his eyes narrowing in confusion. "Because you needed it more," Jamal replied. "That's reason enough." The man gave a weak smile. "You're all right, kid." Rain began to fall harder, soaking Jamal's clothes. He saw a gas station light in the distance, maybe half a mile away. "There's a station up ahead," he said. "I'll get help." He ran. Every step splashed water. His lungs burned, but he didn't stop until he reached the station. Inside, the attendant, a heavy-set man with tired eyes, looked up in surprise. "There's a man hurt down the road." Jamal gasped. "Bike crash. He needs help fast." The attendant hesitated, glancing at the rain. "Don't got a phone that works out here, kid. Closest help's 10 miles north." Jamal's heart sank. "Please," he said. "I'll pay you for gas. Just let me use your truck. I can drive him there." The man looked at him, uncertain. "You even got money?" Jamal pulled the last bills from his pocket, $15, damp from the rain. He placed them on the counter without a word. The man sighed, nodded, and tossed him the keys. When Jamal returned to the crash site, the biker was still conscious but fading fast. He lifted the man carefully into the truck, covered him with his own jacket again, and started the engine. They drove through miles of empty road, lightning flashing through the windshield. The man's voice came in quiet bursts. "What's your name, kid?" "Jamal, I'm..." "Red," the biker said weakly. "Red Wilson." Jamal nodded, focusing on the road. "Hang in there, Mr. Wilson. You one of those..." "Good souls," Red murmured. "World needs more like you." Jamal didn't answer. He just kept driving. When they reached the small clinic north of town, the nurse rushed outside with a stretcher. Jamal helped lift Red out of the truck, his hands trembling. As they wheeled him inside, Red gripped Jamal's wrist. "You saved my life, son," he whispered. "Don't forget this moment. Sometimes help comes back when you least expect it." Jamal nodded silently. He waited in the clinic until midnight, watching through the glass as nurses worked. When a doctor finally came out, he smiled gently. "He's going to be okay. You got him here just in time." Jamal breathed out a shaky sigh of relief. The nurse asked, "Do you have someone to pick you up?" He shook his head. "No, ma'am. I'll walk." She gave him a small cup of coffee and a blanket. "Then walk safe, sweetheart." Jamal stepped back into the cool night. The rain had stopped. The road shimmered beneath the moonlight. His pockets were empty now, not a single dollar left. But his heart was warm in a way it hadn't been for a long time. He looked at the horizon, whispering to himself, "Maybe that's what I'm here for, to help when no one else will." He didn't know that far down the road, beyond the curve of the hills, fate was already turning in his direction, on the roar of 100 motorcycles, carrying gratitude, thunder, and a gift that would change everything. The night after the storm carried a strange kind of stillness. Jamal walked under a sky dusted with stars, the scent of rain still fresh in the air. His jacket was gone, his shoes squelched with every step, and his $15 had disappeared with the man he'd saved. But in his chest, something different burned, a quiet kind of peace. He had done something right, something real. The clinic lights faded behind him as he reached the long stretch of highway again. Each step echoed with memory, the sound of the crash, the look in the biker's eyes, the weight of that moment. Jamal whispered to himself, "He's alive. That's what matters." He walked until the road curved into a small town, no more than a few wooden houses, an old store, and a church with its steeple leaning toward the moon. The town sign read, "Marlowe's Creek, population 412. A faded banner still hung between two poles. Homecoming festival, last month. The town was asleep, windows dark, streetlights flickering. Jamal found an empty bench beneath the awning of a closed diner and sat there. His stomach growled, but he was too tired to move. He leaned back, pulling the blanket the nurse had given him around his shoulders. His eyes drifted shut, and for the first time in days, he dreamed. In his dream, he was home again, back in the narrow apartment where the sound of the city never stopped. His mother stood by the kitchen sink, humming an old song, stirring soup in a dented pot. She turned and smiled. "Jamal, you always had a good heart," she said softly. "Don't ever lose that, no matter what this world takes from you." He tried to answer, but his throat felt heavy, and when he looked again, the apartment had faded into the sound of thunder, the crash, the rain, the road. He woke to the chill of morning. The sun rose over Marlowe's Creek, casting long shadows across the empty street. Jamal rubbed his eyes, trying to shake off the dream. His stomach clenched again, but when he checked his pockets, there was nothing left. He stood, stretched, and walked toward the diner. Through the glass door, he could see a woman setting out chairs, wiping down the counter. She noticed him and frowned for a moment, then motioned for him to come inside. "You look like you haven't eaten in a while," she said. Her voice was firm but kind. "Sit down," Jamal hesitated. "I don't have any money, ma'am," she smiled faintly. "I didn't ask you that, did I?" He nodded gratefully and sat at the counter. The woman, her name tag read May, poured him a cup of coffee and set a plate in front of him. Eggs, toast, and a single slice of ham. The smell alone almost made him cry. "Thank you," he whispered. She studied him quietly. "Where are you headed?" Jamal took a sip of the hot coffee before answering. "Nowhere, really. Just trying to find work," May nodded. "There's not much here but farms and the lumber mill. Still, good hands always find something." He looked down, feeling a flicker of hope. Then through the window the sound came again, distant but unmistakable. A low rumble that grew louder by the second. Engines, dozens of them. May frowned. "Well, haven't seen that many riders since my daddy's time." Jamal turned to look. Down the main street, a line of motorcycles rolled into town, their chrome glinting in the morning light. Men and women rode in formation, some young, some gray-haired, all wearing black jackets marked with a symbol, a pair of silver wings and a red flame, the same symbol he'd seen on Red's jacket. Jamal's chest tightened. It's them, he whispered. The riders stopped in front of the diner. Engines cut. Boots hit the ground. For a moment, silence. Then one of them stepped forward, pulling off his helmet. It wasn't Red. It was another man, tall and broad, with deep-set eyes and a look that carried both weariness and strength. He scanned the diner through the window, then spotted Jamal. A small, knowing smile crossed his face. He opened the door. The bell above it jingled softly. "You Jamal Carter?" the man asked. Jamal froze. "Yes, sir," the man nodded. "Name's Blake. I ride with the same group as Red Wilson. Heard you were the one who found him on Route 17. Jamal stood slowly. "Is he okay?" Blake smiled. "Better than okay. The doc said if you hadn't brought him in, he wouldn't have made it. You saved his life." Jamal let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "That's good to hear." Blake studied him for a long moment, then said, "Red wanted to see you. Said if I ever found you, to bring you with us." Jamal blinked in surprise. "Me? Where?" Blake's eyes softened. "You'll see." He turned to May. "Ma'am, we'll take care of his breakfast tab." May nodded slowly. "You do that. And tell Red he still owes me a story." The riders outside started their engines again, the roar echoing through the sleepy town. Jamal followed Blake to a black motorcycle parked at the front. Blake handed him a spare helmet. "You ever ride before?" Jamal smiled nervously. "Not really." "Well," Blake said, "today's a good day to start." He climbed on behind him, gripping the side rails tight as the engine growled to life. The convoy pulled out of Marlowe's Creek, a storm of sound and chrome under the morning sun. As they rode, Jamal felt the wind tear past his face, wild and free. For the first time in months, maybe years, he wasn't walking alone. Miles blurred by, open fields, pine forests, small towns watching the thunder roll through. After nearly an hour, the convoy slowed. They turned onto a dirt road leading to an open clearing surrounded by tall oaks. Rows of tents and bikes filled the space like a small camp. The air smelled of wood smoke and leather. Dozens of riders stood gathered around a central fire. And at the center, sitting in a wheelchair, was Red Wilson, the man Jamal had saved. When Red saw him, his face broke into a grin. "Well, I'll be. The road brought you here after all." Jamal stepped forward, unsure what to say. "I didn't expect this," Red laughed softly. "Neither did I, kid. But life's funny like that. It gives back when you least think it will." The others stepped aside as Red motioned him closer. Jamal felt the warmth of the fire against his face, the sound of wind rustling the trees above. The moment felt larger than words, like fate had paused to watch. Red looked up at him and said, "You gave me your last $15 and your jacket, without asking for a thing. You didn't see a biker. You saw a person who needed help. And that's something this world doesn't teach much anymore." Jamal lowered his eyes. "It was the right thing to do," Red smiled. "That's exactly why we're here." He nodded to Blake. The man walked to one of the bikes parked nearby, reached into a saddlebag, and pulled out an envelope. He handed it to Jamal. "What's this?" Jamal asked. "Open it," Red said. Inside were several folded papers, and beneath them a set of car keys. Jamal's eyes widened. "I don't understand." Red leaned forward, voice calm but full of emotion. "That truck you drove me in? It was old, barely running. We fixed it up, made it new. And it's yours now. A small thank you for saving a stranger." Jamal was speechless. For a long time, he couldn't find words. He just stared at the keys shining in the firelight, his reflection small in the metal. Red chuckled softly. "You earned it, son. The road pays back kindness in its own way." Jamal looked up, his voice trembling. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll keep helping people," Red replied. "That's all I ask." For a long time, Jamal just stood there by the fire, staring at the keys glinting in his palm. He couldn't speak. He couldn't even breathe right. The laughter and low murmurs of the riders filled the clearing, blending with the crackle of flames and the faint hum of engines cooling in the distance. Someone handed him a cup of hot coffee. Another clapped him gently on the shoulder. He felt small in that circle of rough leather and chrome, yet somehow safe. Red watched him, a soft smile playing across his weathered face. "It's not charity, Jamal, it's gratitude." You gave what little you had, and that kind of heart deserves something good in return. Jamal nodded slowly. I just did what anyone would have done. Red shook his head. No, son, not anyone. Silence hung for a moment, the kind of silence that says everything words can't. The firelight danced in Red's eyes. Take that truck, drive where life leads you. Maybe that road will bring you home to something you didn't even know you were missing. Morning broke clear and golden the next day. Dew glistened on the grass as Jamal packed his few belongings into the old blue pickup the bikers had repaired. Its engine purred smooth, steady, a heartbeat of steel and gratitude. Blake handed him a folded map. She'll take you far, brother. We replaced the tires, tuned the engine. There's enough gas to get you to Atlanta and then some. Red reached out his hand. Jamal took it firmly. Keep driving, Red said. Don't let the world harden you. The road has a way of bringing folks together who need each other. Jamal smiled faintly. I'll never forget you, sir, Red grinned. Call me Red. Sir makes me feel old. Laughter rippled through the camp, breaking the heaviness that had gathered. Jamal climbed into the truck, took one last look at the circle of riders, and started the engine. As he drove away, dozens of engines roared behind him, a thunderous farewell echoing through the pines. By noon, Jamal reached the edge of another town, Dover's Bend. Population barely 600. The streets were narrow, the shops old, their paint peeling beneath the southern sun. He parked near a hardware store, stepped out, and stretched. He still couldn't believe any of it had happened. The accident, the riders, the gift. It felt like a story too kind for the real world. But the truck was real. The keys in his pocket were real. And for the first time in a long while, Jamal felt he had something to hold on to. He spent that afternoon looking for work. He asked at the gas station, the feed store, the garage. Most folks just shook their heads politely. Sorry, son. We're full up. Try the next town over. Can't take on anyone new this month. By sunset, he was sitting by the truck again, sipping water from a plastic bottle, tired and dusty. The doubts crept in, quiet at first, then louder. Maybe this was just luck that wouldn't last. Maybe the road would keep taking more than it gave. He closed his eyes, hearing his mother's voice again. Good hearts always find their path. He opened them when he heard a soft cough nearby. A little girl, no more than 7, stood at the edge of the sidewalk, holding a small brown puppy in her arms. The puppy trembled and she looked worried. Sir, she said shyly, you have a car. Can you help me get to the vet? My dog's sick. Jamal blinked, surprised. Where's your mama? She's at work. The vet's 2 miles down the road and I don't want to walk alone. Without thinking, Jamal smiled. Of course. Let's get your little friend some help. The girl climbed in, clutching her puppy. Jamal started the truck and drove slowly through the narrow road until they reached a small white building with a faded sign. Dover Animal Clinic. He waited as she ran inside. Minutes later, she came back with a relieved smile. The doctor said he's going to be fine. Jamal smiled back. That's great news. She reached into her pocket and pulled out 2 crumpled dollars. This is all I got. It's for the gas, Jamal shook his head gently. You keep that, sweetheart. Just take care of your puppy, her eyes sparkled. You're nice. I hope something good happens to you. He laughed softly. Me too. When she left, Jamal sat in the truck for a long time, looking out across the quiet street. He realized something. The world might be full of pain and struggle, but it still had room for kindness, small and simple as it might be. That thought stayed with him as he drove out of town, the horizon burning orange in the fading light. Days passed. Jamal stopped at small towns along the highway, picking up odd jobs where he could, fixing fences, painting barns, sweeping diner floors. Each place he passed through, he left a little of himself behind, a good deed, a quiet word, a bit of hope. He slept in the truck some nights, under stars that stretched wide and endless. In those quiet hours, he talked to his father, gone too soon, lost to a heart attack when Jamal was 13. He remembered his deep laugh, his strong hands, his voice saying, "Son, don't measure a man by what he owns, but by what he gives when he has nothing left," Jamal whispered to the night. I'm trying, Dad. I'm trying to be that kind of man. One evening, he parked by a riverbank outside of Fairview, a town bigger than the rest. The truck door creaked as he stepped out, carrying a small bag of groceries. He was eating less these days, saving every penny. The moonlight shimmered on the water. Crickets sang. Fireflies blinked like tiny lanterns in the tall grass. It was quiet until he heard footsteps behind him. He turned. A man in a worn sheriff's jacket stood there, flashlight in hand. "Evening, son. Everything all right here?" Jamal nodded calmly. "Yes, sir. Just stopping for the night. I'll be gone by morning." The sheriff studied him for a moment, his eyes narrowing slightly. "That your truck?" "Yes, sir." "It was a gift. From who?" Jamal hesitated. "From a group of bikers. I helped one of their members after a crash." The sheriff raised an eyebrow. "A group of bikers, huh? And they just gave you a truck?" Jamal met his gaze steadily. "Yes, sir. I guess they wanted to thank me." The sheriff clicked off his flashlight, rubbing his chin. "Strange world," he muttered. Then his tone softened. "Well, if that's true, you did a good thing. Not many folks would have stopped." Jamal nodded, grateful. "Thank you." The sheriff gave a half smile. "Town's quiet tonight. You can rest here, but be gone by sunrise. Fair enough?" "Fair enough." As the man walked away, Jamal leaned against the truck, staring up at the stars. The road behind him stretched long and crooked, but somehow he felt it leading somewhere, not just to another town, but toward a purpose. He didn't know it yet, but his journey wasn't finished. The storm he'd survived, the kindness he'd shown, they were all ripples spreading outward, soon to return in ways he couldn't imagine. Because sometimes, the smallest acts of goodness echo louder than thunder, and fate, patient as the horizon, was waiting for its moment to answer back. A week passed before Jamal found himself back behind the wheel, the road unfolding before him like a ribbon of silver beneath the morning sun. He'd been driving from town to town, not knowing exactly where he was going, only that something inside him kept whispering, "Keep going." The truck rattled slightly over a rough patch of road, its old tires humming like an old blues song. Jamal had grown to love that sound. It reminded him that no matter how worn things got, they could still move forward. By noon, he reached the outskirts of a city, larger than any he'd seen since the storm. A faded green sign read, "Welcome to Brooksville." He stopped by a small diner on the edge of town, parked the truck beneath an old oak tree, and stepped inside. The bell over the door jingled softly. A few heads turned. The place smelled like coffee, fried eggs, and old wood. "Morning, stranger," said a gray-haired woman behind the counter. "You look like you could use a plate and a story." Jamal smiled. "You read minds too?" She laughed. "Only hungry ones," he sat at the counter. "Coffee and whatever's hot. Coming right up," she said, pouring him a steaming cup. "Name's Lorraine." "Jamal." "Well, Jamal, you found the friendliest corner in Brooksville. Not that there's much competition." They shared a light laugh. For a few minutes, Jamal forgot how tired he was. Lorraine served him eggs and toast, and for the first time in days, he felt warm all the way through. When he finished, he tried to pay, but she waved him off. "No charge." "You look like someone the road's been testing." He hesitated. "That's kind of you, ma'am," she smiled. "Just pay it forward. That's the only kind of currency that never runs out." Those words stuck with him. After leaving the diner, Jamal drove deeper into the city. The buildings rose higher, the traffic thicker, the faces faster. He wasn't used to this kind of noise anymore. Horns blaring, music booming from open windows, voices shouting across streets. He stopped at a red light near a construction site. A few workers stood on scaffolding, shouting directions to one another over the buzz of drills. One of them, a tall man with a yellow vest and safety helmet, slipped. The board beneath him cracked with a loud snap. Without thinking, Jamal jumped out of the truck. He ran toward the site as the man dangled from the edge, fingers barely holding on. Others froze, not knowing what to do. Jamal grabbed a nearby ladder and pushed it against the wall. "Hold on, brother." "Don't let go!" He climbed quickly, reaching out just as the man's grip began to falter. Their hands met, rough palms locking tight. "I got you," Jamal said firmly. "You're not falling today." With a final pull, he hoisted the man up onto the ledge. Both of them sat there, breathing hard. The man laughed shakily. "You got good timing, man," Jamal grinned. "Guess the good Lord wasn't ready to let you go." The foreman rushed over, eyes wide. "You saved his life." Jamal shrugged. Just did what I had to do. Still, the foreman said, we owe you something. Jamal raised a hand. You don't owe me anything, just stay safe. He walked back to the truck, heart still racing, unaware that a woman nearby had recorded the whole thing on her phone. Within hours, the video spread across social media. Unknown man saves worker from fall. It reached thousands. Then hundreds of thousands. People called him the man with the blue truck. That night, Jamal parked by the river just outside the city, unaware of his sudden fame. He sat in silence, watching the water reflect the city lights. He thought of Red. He thought of Lorraine. He thought of all the people he'd met on the road, the small kindnesses that had shaped his path. He didn't know the world had started talking about him. At that same moment, across town, Red sat in a small roadside bar with his crew, watching the same video on a cracked phone. He smiled proudly. That's our boy, Red said softly. Knew he'd make something of that gift. Blake grinned. You think he knows people are calling him a hero? Red shook his head. Doesn't matter. Real heroes don't do it for the noise. The next morning, Jamal woke to the sound of knocking on his truck window. A young woman stood there holding a newspaper. Her eyes were bright with excitement. Hey, you're the guy from the video, right? Jamal blinked. What video? She handed him the paper. On the front page was a picture of him, hand outstretched pulling the construction worker to safety. The headline read, Mystery driver saves a life, then disappears. He stared, speechless. I didn't even know someone was filming, he murmured. The woman smiled. People are trying to find you. They say you're the man who helped a biker gang, the one who keeps showing up when people need help. You've become kind of a legend. Jamal laughed softly, shaking his head. I'm just a man trying to do right. Well, she said, it's working. She left, but the paper stayed with him. He read the article 3 times, not for the praise, but for the message. How strangers had written that his story gave them hope. Hope. Something he used to think belonged to other people. Now, it was his. Days later, Jamal was invited to a community event in the city park. He hesitated, unsure if he belonged among cameras and crowds. But something told him to go. When he arrived, he saw faces, young and old, rich and poor, all gathered to meet the man whose quiet kindness had inspired them. Lorraine was there too. Someone had recognized her from her diner and brought her along. When she saw Jamal, she beamed. I knew you were special, she said, hugging him. I'm just grateful, he replied softly. The road's been good to me. A local pastor stepped onto the stage. Brothers and sisters, he began, we live in a time when people forget how powerful one good act can be. But this man reminds us all that goodness still walks among us, in the form of an ordinary soul with an extraordinary heart. The crowd applauded. Jamal stood quietly, humbled, his hands in his pockets. He wasn't used to being seen. But at that moment he realized it wasn't about him. It was about the echo. Every hand he had helped, every smile he had given, they had rippled outward. And now the world was answering back. That night, as the city lights dimmed, Jamal sat again by the river, the same one where his journey had paused days ago. He whispered into the dark, Red, if you can hear me, thank you. You didn't just give me a truck. You gave me a reason to believe again. The wind brushed softly against the water, carrying the scent of rain. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled, and though Jamal couldn't see it, a long line of motorcycles was heading his way from miles down the road, their engines humming a familiar song of brotherhood. They were coming to find him. Rain began to fall softly across the riverbank, each drop sending ripples that danced beneath the moonlight. Jamal leaned against the side of his old blue truck, coat collar turned up, eyes half closed. He wasn't waiting for anyone, at least that's what he told himself, but somewhere deep inside he felt something coming. Something big. The distant rumble grew louder. At first it sounded like thunder rolling across the highway. Then the rhythm changed. Steady, powerful, unmistakable. Engines, dozens of them. Headlights pierced the mist, one by one, until the horizon shimmered with light. The sound grew, echoing through the night air, low and mighty, like a storm made of metal and memory. Jamal stepped forward. His breath caught. It was them, the Hell's Angels, 100 strong, rolling toward him in perfect formation. Their jackets glistened under the rain, and their engines idled like a single living thing. The bikes slowed, surrounding the truck in a half circle. The air smelled of gasoline, leather, and rain-soaked asphalt. Then one engine cut off, then another, and another, until only silence remained. From the middle of the group, a familiar figure dismounted, tall, broad-shouldered, walking with a slow, deliberate grace. Red. His long coat was darker now. His hair streaked with gray, but the fire in his eyes hadn't faded. He walked up to Jamal with a quiet smile. "Well," Red said, voice soft but steady. "You sure know how to make an entrance, kid." Jamal's voice trembled. "Red, I thought you were—" Red lifted a hand. "Yeah, I know what you thought." He smiled faintly. "Storm hit us hard that night. Lost the road, lost a few bikes, but we made it. Took me a while to get back on my feet. Guess fate had other plans." Jamal couldn't speak. He just nodded, heart full, eyes glassy with disbelief. Red looked around at the crowd of bikers behind him. "We heard what you've been doing, Jamal. Saw that video. Read the stories. You didn't just help one man. You helped everyone who ever stopped believing the world still had kindness left." He motioned toward a trailer behind the bikes. "That's why we're here. Got something for you." Jamal frowned, confused. "What is it?" Red walked him toward the trailer. Two bikers pulled the tarp aside. Underneath, gleaming in the moonlight, was a truck, brand new, deep blue like the ocean before a storm. On its tailgate, engraved in silver, were the words, "Keep the road kind." Jamal stood frozen, eyes wide, rain mixing with the tears on his cheeks. "I don't know what to say," he whispered. Red smiled. "Then don't say anything. Just drive." The bikers clapped and cheered, their laughter echoing through the night like thunder with joy in it. But when the noise died down, Red placed a hand on Jamal's shoulder. His voice grew quieter, heavier. "You remember that $15 you gave me?" Jamal nodded slowly. Red continued. "That day, I wasn't just broke. I was broken. My crew had lost a brother. I'd lost my will. Thought the world didn't have room for men like us anymore. But then you, a stranger, stopped. You didn't see a biker. You didn't see danger. You saw a person." He paused, eyes glistening. "That's the day I turned my life around. Been clean, been honest, been helping others ever since. You started that. One small act, one small kindness, and it saved me." The words hit Jamal like a wave. He looked around, at the faces, at the engines, at the rain still falling, and realized how far he'd come from that cold gas station night when he gave his last $15 to a stranger in need. Now, that stranger had brought him a family. As dawn broke, the bikers began to ride out one by one, their engines blending into the rising light. Red lingered for a moment longer. "You ever get lost again, Jamal?" he said. "Just follow the sound of the road. You'll find us." He mounted his bike, revved the engine once, and nodded. "Keep the road kind, brother," Jamal smiled faintly. "Always." Then Red was gone, swallowed by the mist and the morning sun. Hours later, Jamal sat inside his new truck, fingers tracing the silver letters on the dashboard. "Keep the road kind." He turned the key. The engine purred like a promise. As he drove down the long open road, the world seemed new again. The sky cleared, sunlight spilling across the fields. He passed small towns, open farms, families waving from porches. At every stop, he left something behind, a kind word, a helping hand, a memory. He had become the road itself, carrying the message forward, mile after mile. The narrator's voice fades softly in as the screen shows Jamal's truck disappearing down a sunlit highway. Sometimes the greatest miracles don't come in thunder or lightning. They come quietly, in a simple act of kindness, offered by someone who has almost nothing left to give. The world doesn't need more heroes. It needs more hearts willing to stop, just for a moment, and help someone who can't pay them back. That's what makes the road kind. That's what keeps the echoes alive. Soft instrumental music swells. The camera slowly pans to the engraved words on the back of the truck. Keep the road kind. The rain has stopped. The sun glows across the horizon. A final line appears on screen, white against gold light. inspired by true kindness.